This is Woman Being Podcast, and you are listening to three lovely voices. The first is myself. I'm Kelly. This is Kelly Ann. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kelly Ann, and I'm saying hello.
And Emma.
Hello there, lovely woman beings.
It is lovely to be talking with you ladies this morning and to be considering the truth of purpose and passion.
Oh.
And how, as a human being and a woman being, your purpose and passion is not tied to a romantic partner. Isn't that right?
Amen.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we will be back in a sec and can't wait to talk about this topic with you guys. This is Woman Being,
where we explore thoughts and opinions.
And have the freedom to change our minds.
Without expectation or judgment,
we will hold a safe space and support each other
as we navigate together in the form of feminine.
So our topic today, finding purpose and passion outside of a romantic partnership, is actually another listener recommended topic. So thank you to the person who recommended that to us. It's actually a really great topic, and we're excited to dive into it.
Yeah.
Before we get started, I wanted to remind you all that you can follow us on Instagram at Woman Being Podcast. You can find our website at womanbeingcommunity.com, except no at, just www. and yeah, follow us on any podcast platform you prefer. We're on all of them, including now Amazon.
Yeah.
And so that's exciting. And if you like to see our beautiful faces, check us out on YouTube. So, ladies, how
Kelly.
are you doing today?
Doing swell.
Just dandy.
Yeah.
You know, if you're listening, you can't see I'm wearing a plaid jacket,
She
and
looks
it's
fabulous.
really cute.
Yes.
I drank last night, so I have coffee, but you know, I'm ready to do it.
Party.
We're going to do
it.
It's like a morning party, post-party.
Post-party.
This is the after party.
Yeah. Only for the most exclusive guests, including you, the listener.
You are a cherished guest.
All right, we're going to circle back. I think we can all agree that our culture places a high value on romantic relationships. I mean, you just watch a movie, read
Any
a book, like all of our, you know,
Any song.
like all of our marketing content even is like directed towards finding that special person and buying them whatever it is that you need to have the best relationship in the world.
Obviously, jewelry.
Yes, jewelry,
100%.
perfume, clothing. It's all about presenting yourself in a way, and not all of it. That's probably a little bit, but it's we have a high value for it in our culture. And so I was curious, in what ways other than the ones that I just mentioned have you guys noticed this in your lives? And what messages were you fed growing up about finding that special person and what that meant for your life?
Great question. I think growing up, it was very interesting because I was very much so a romantic from a very young age, watched all the Disney princess movies and was like, I'm going to find a prince and we're going to have a magical love story and it's going to be happy and amazing. And I was actually told by a parent that love stories aren't real. And that actually real life isn't like that at all.
Wow.
And so I needed to lower my expectations.
Oh, gosh.
Wow. Who was your favorite prince?
Oh, I really
Simba.
loved Anastasia.
She's not a prince.
She's not a princess, but Dimitri and Anastasia I thought was
gotcha.
real sexy. For some
Yeah.
reason, those, two awkward strings of hair coming down, it was like typical like 90s boy.
Yes,
I was like
Boy Meets World type of
damn,
vibes.
that was sexy. So yeah, I would say he was probably my favorite, even though it's not a technical Disney princess situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was always very hopeful and very excited, but also about, the possibility of a future romantic relationship. And fun fact, my story, in my opinion, with my husband is a very princess story. So I'm like, proved you wrong, thanks.
Take that.
Take that.
I didn't lower my expectations. Thank you very much.
Yeah, literally got a prince that would do anything for me. But yeah, so I think that though a lot of that was some of that was heart desire, but also a lot of that was culture. I grew up in Oklahoma, and that was kind of like all like what the girls were, thinking about and talking about. It was like, oh, well, I'm going to get a husband one day. I'm going to be a mom. Like, you played house. Everyone wanted to be the mom. When you played house, it was like very like ingrained in us from a young age, whether it was intentional or not. Like that was the focus. And it's like, oh, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. It's going to be so great. And I wanted like the romance side. I wanted the partnership side. But I was like, actually, like, I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. So in that way, I never really fully fit in. But I think it is kind of like something that we ingrain in young girls as a value, and probably young boys as well. But that, oh, you grow up and you find someone, and then you have purpose. And I kind of fell into that for a while with my spouse. But he is very feminist and is like, no, you don't need me to fix your rearview mirror. You can fix your rearview mirror. Like, he really pushes me to actually not be fully reliant on him, which is a good thing. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like every TV show that I watched, like, when, like, all the, like, tween, teen TV shows, like Hannah Montana and Zoe 101 and
oh, yeah,
iCarly. I don't know. All these shows, I saw, like, these girls that I looked up to and that I felt, like, represented me. And they were dating and, like, getting out by boys and, like, very boy-focused a lot of the time. Even Lizzie McGuire. Like, it was very boy-focused and always, like, they always had a crush or, like, someone they have their eye on. And they always have boys that like them. And I feel like I had a lot of insecurity around that because I didn't have a lot of boys liking me. And then my friends as well were, like, dating a lot. And I feel like I always wound up somehow with girlfriends who, like, were those girls that always had boyfriends, and I was the girl that like never had boyfriends. So it was very like I felt like I was like behind, because the messaging was this is what should be happening. Like, I remember even asking my mom one time. I like dramatically came into her bedroom and like laid on her bed and was like, "Mom, why don't any boys like me?" And she's like, "Honey, it's going to be okay." But I think another, like, message that I received a lot that made dating and, like, relationships in general feel very high stakes was this idea of the one, which I actually think is a lie. Because, I mean, there's this idea, which is sort of like the Disney princess idea, like, you're going to find the one and they're going to be perfect for you, and then you're going to, like, be together forever and everything's going to be fine because you found the one. But, like, I think that concept, like, cuts out like, responsibility in a relationship and intentionality. And also it's just illogical, because what if you accidentally marry someone else's one? Then you've broken the whole system, because then someone else is going to marry another person's one, and then before you know it, the whole system's broken. So even if there ever was a one, we've already broken it. I'm sure.
There's, like, no way that we can like fix that.
Yeah. And so all that to say, I feel like that put a lot of pressure on me, where it was like, well, do I even have a one? Because no boys are liking me. Like, that was what it felt like. But it was just a lot of feeling like the messaging I'm getting is love, love, love. And what I'm seeing in my real life is not that,
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, you grow up, especially, like, in my, like, conservative church culture that I always talk about, but, it's what I grew up in, so that's what you're gonna hear about. But, like, marriage is kind of seen as this, like, elevated, I don't know, arrival of sorts, I guess. Like, this is when you have risen to the next step in life, and I feel like so much of my adolescence was spent preparing for that. Whether that's, like, character development or not having sex or not dating too many guys or whatever, so that, like, I don't tarnish my future marriage. But there's for sure, like, a sentiment of, like, that is the next thing. Like, you have to go to school, you have to then do the next thing and whatever, you get married and then you buy a house, whatever. And so it felt like a natural progression in what it means to be an adult and to grow up and whatever. And as such, like, it is the place where you team up and you rocket towards your destiny kind of thing. You know, like
No, totally. It's like you've arrived.
Yes.
You are now on the playing field.
Yes, you can now like do the things.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting to me because I mean, I feel like in my upbringing, I was always so skeptical of marriage because I grew up around so much divorce, like multiple divorces across my family. And so to me, I feel like I was focused on like, oh, I want somebody, but it wasn't like I'm gearing up for a marital union that will then push me to my destiny or whatever, you know, like that wasn't ever a thought for me, but I also like wasn't in that like conservative evangelical space. So it was, that's just like fascinating to hear. And how like, I can't even fathom like preteen or early teen me even considering marriage. Like that was just not on my radar. And I mean, I also thought that I was cursed to be divorced because everyone in my family was divorced. And so I guess I didn't see marriage as like a goal necessarily. Like it was like a potential, but it wasn't like, this is what I'm working towards, you know?
Interesting. I mean, I feel like I was kind of like groomed in a way. Like, I mean, whatever it was, like, I think it was like when I was 11 or 10 or 11 in our Sunday school class with Miss Jean. I love Miss Jean. She's the best. But like we straight up like wrote letters to our future husbands, like explaining to them why we chose purity and the steps we took and the why and how much we loved them and this whole situation. And so I'm like, I don't know that, like, it was just at the forefront of my mind, but I was kind of, like, in between both of you. Like, on one hand, it's like, I really want this, and, like, I felt, like, this draw towards quote-unquote destiny, but also because where I'm from, like, you don't really get divorced. I knew very few divorced people growing up, and I could, as a kid, you're so intuitive. I was just like, I can tell a lot of these people are unhappy. And so I was like, I will not commit to anything that doesn't make me happy. And that was where I got this idea of like, I'm going to have a fairy tale, quote unquote, relationship of like, it's going to be the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Did you give that letter to your future husband?
I sure did. I actually had like a box. I mean, this is how like conservative I was.
Oh my gosh, I would have loved to have seen that.
I had a treasure. I mean, I have it. It's like in the room next door.
Oh my gosh.
I have like a treasure chest filled with letters that I wrote to him over the years.
Aww.
Yeah.
Like before you were together, or
Yeah.
like
Yeah, from the time I was like 11.
you were just writing letters?
I was
to your future
writing
husband?
letters to my future husband.
Wow.
And I gave it to James when we got married.
That is
Did he
number
read them all?
one, super romantic.
Yeah,
But
he
number
did.
two, also kind of weird.
Yeah, it's very weird and very creepy. But
But like really cute.
I was
at the
like,
same
oh,
time.
that's what
That's
I
what you
perceived
do.
as normal.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just prepare
Like this
for this
person
future
that I'm,
person
like-
who you will end up with. Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm building a relationship with that doesn't even exist yet,
Wow.
which is problematic.
Well, I mean,
In some ways.
start. It's good to be forward thinking.
Yeah.
You know,
I
to
think
plan.
there's a balance because I think a lot of Christian girls that are like planning for their future husband will idealize them a lot
Totally.
because of that.
Oh yeah.
And then when it actually comes to it, they can't accept anybody because nobody meets the
Totally.
standard
Measures
of
up.
Like,
whatever. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
will never hurt my feelings ever. Like it's like that's not a person.
Just don't interact with any humans
Yeah.
ever then
Yeah.
because people are going to hurt your feelings.
Totally. So, I mean, you touched on a little bit like kind of this like nobody likes me, what's wrong with me kind of thing.
My sob story.
Yes, your sob story. Which, I mean, like, we've all been there, you know, like,
Yeah.
why doesn't this person like me? Am I not good enough? Whatever. Like, have you guys, in what ways have you seen your value as a human kind of being tied to this, like, romantic story? If you've ended up with someone, then you have found that, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Like that you found like value because you
Right. Or like it's a it's proven your value for you to have found the person or whatever.
Yeah. I think that's definitely something a lot of women are basically told, is that this is where your value is going to come from. And I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense historically, because women were literally bought by their husbands, and like from their fathers, essentially. Like it was, here, you get this wedding dowry, or you get this property, or whatever. Like, these are the benefits of letting me take this woman as my wife. And so I can see where that stems from. And now, obviously, in our Western American culture, we have we don't do that. But like, there's still the remnants of like, well, women have been second-class citizens for a long time, and like, women have not had all of these rights. And women are finally able to have a large amount of autonomy, but there's still those remnants. And so I think a lot of women feel like they don't have purpose if they are not in a relationship. And I think that especially like the Christian white evangelical church perpetuates that, because there's so much where like you don't have as much room to like serve in the church if you're not married. Like, there's churches that are like, well, you can't lead a small group because you don't have a husband to lead it with you, or like,
or you're just like stuck in women's ministry, or like you're confined to like a certain level of,
it's women's ministry or children's ministry, and that's it, unless you're married,
right?
And so that's I think the church perpetuates that a lot and doesn't value like single women as much. But even when you think about political candidates don't do as well if they're not married and things like that, like that's a legitimate thing. Like, people want to see you as a happy couple, and that shows you as like a stable human somehow, which doesn't make any sense, because there's plenty of unstable people that get married and perfectly stable people that don't. So there's definitely that. And I also feel like, for me, like when I first started dating, I had my first boyfriend at 17, which felt like just so late to me, which now looking back 10 years from then, it's like, oh, 17 is so young. But at the time, like, my friends have been dating since they were 13.
Right.
You know?
No, 17's a good time to start dating, I feel like. You know, like, you've gotten over the worst, like, middle school stuff, and you've, like, you know, I don't know.
Well,
there's never the best time. Sorry, I'll stop. For anyone out there that didn't start until they were 17 or still hasn't started and are 25, that's okay.
Yeah, no, it totally is. And like, looking back now, I'm like, part of me is like, that was kind of stupid. Not that like, just because I was not emotionally mature enough to even understand what it meant to be in a relationship. And I remember when I did start dating at 17, like, the guy I was dating became like my everything. Like, he was my whole world. And I feel like part of that was because I had seen all of my friends like date, and I had seen so many other people like be in relationships while I was left behind. And so then my like twisted mindset was, well, I need to like commit everything to this because no one else is gonna want me, you know? And so like, I have to give my all. But then you wind up, when the relationship ends, friendless and like trying to build back like your life because you've sort of cast everyone else in your life to the side, and your hobbies, your everything is like centered around this other human. So that definitely, like, my value was heavily invested in them, because I felt like I almost had like a poverty mindset around it. Like, I'm not going to get anything else, so I need to put my all into this.
Right. Well, and I think those messages of like, you know, the couple is the happiest place to be. That is the landing point or whatever. Like, that to me feeds like codependent relationships and like unhealthy like lack of boundaries and things like that, because it's like, we have found each other and we must stay together and we must like be intertwined in all ways, and because it's more important than anything else.
Yeah. You know what it makes me think of? It's a song that I hate. It's Justin Bieber and Ed Sheeran. What's that song that they sing? Where they're like at a party and they don't want to be there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm at a party I don't want to be at.
Yeah. I am somebody. That's what I hate. Is
You
because
hate it?
they say when I'm with
Aw.
my baby, maybe I feel like maybe I'm somebody, and they talk about how they're like they feel uncomfortable in this party, which is
Right.
like fine, like social
Yeah.
anxiety, whatever.
Worst.
Like you can feel uncomfortable at a party, but then they're like, but I'm somebody when I'm with my person.
Right.
And I'm like, that is toxic and codependent.
Right.
Like, I hate that song because of that.
Oh, interesting. I had a very different view of that. It was more like, oh, I'm seen by someone that knows me and knows I'm uncomfortable in this crowd of people, even if I present comfortable and put together. So to me, it felt like more known.
Yeah.
Therefore, I am somebody. But I can totally see where you're coming from, like 100%.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what their intention was when they wrote the song or whatever. They were probably thinking more along the lines of what you were saying, but I hear the song and it grates on me.
Well,
Good to know.
So it's
Noted.
funny because I got married when I was 18, right? And so, like, to me, I had, like, skipped any sort of fear that I would never get married. You know, like, because I wasn't expecting to get married right out of high school, first of all. But,
Yeah.
like, I know that a lot of people in their 20s struggle with, like, I'm not married yet. You know, like, I don't have that person yet, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of just skipped all that because I just got married right away. And so because I kind of skipped, like, this fear of I am accepted as a human because I'm married or not, like, because I just was. So, like, that was it. But my biggest concern was, like, now within this marriage, I have to, like, make something happen out of it. Or I can now, like, pursue my dreams with it and, like, sort of felt like I was pulling us along this trajectory of what I felt we needed.
The destiny.
Right. Like, yeah, I was like, now we are obliged to pursue this destiny that I've been told that I have.
I mean, I feel like I can't really, like, not that we are, but I don't feel like I can pass judgment on anyone because, again, like, I think we are set up to be that way in a certain way. But, like, I personally also don't really relate to that because there was never a doubt in my mind I would get married. I, like, always knew. I was like, I am a
Same,
catch.
yeah.
I am beautiful. I am smart. You would be lucky. So I always, like, had that mentality. But, like, also, like, I know for a lot of people it's kind of a struggle. Like, and there can be a certain level of anxiety. I mean, once you get out of college or, like, hit your mid-20s, it's like, oh, it feels like clock's ticking, especially for a woman. And I feel like that is something that, like, society unfortunately kind of pushes on us. Like, oh, you want to have babies before you're 30. I'm like, what? I can have babies until I'm, like, 40. My mom
feel
had
like-
my youngest sister at, like, 45. Or something
I'd
like
say
that.
that's a message the church gives. I would say our, like, Western society as a whole is messaging more have your 20s and then have kids when you're 30 something.
Really?
Get married when you're 30. Like, for sure. Even if you look at, like, for example, like Friends or How I Met Your Mother, like, or New Girl, all those shows, those people get married in their 30s. Like, they're all, like, just in their 20s, like, living, and then they, like,
And then they have
settle,
to settle down.
at the
Yeah.
end, and they start having kids when they're in
Yeah.
their late 20s, early 30s, that sort of age
Right.
range. That's more of what, and, like, statistically, people are getting married later and later in general, like, across the United States. So I would say the church definitely pushes, like, you should have babies while you're in your 20s. But I would say American, like, society and culture at large pushes, like,
Right.
live up your 20s and then get married and have babies.
Well, and I would argue because the church, like Western society or the secular culture is like, live your life, you know, like get all the partying out, get all the the dating out, experiment, blah, blah,
Date
blah.
around,
And the church is
figure out
basically
what you
saying, no,
like.
don't do any of those things. That's bad. You need to get married as soon as possible so that you avoid the temptation to, like,
Yes.
fall off the deep end, essentially.
Yeah.
Get married, settle down, get serious. And so, there's definitely a lot of pressure to be settled in your 20s as opposed to, like, waiting. Within church culture, at least.
Interesting. I mean, I feel like I get those messages from multiple places, but I'm also thinking, like, medically. People are like, oh, the older,
Well, there is that,
the older you get, the harder it is. And I'm like, well, pregnancy is hard regardless. So, like, it's going to suck regardless. At the end of the day, you have to push a tiny human out of your body. So,
Yeah.
but, I don't know. I feel like people, I think a lot of people struggle with it differently. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, there's pressure. Or like, even like peer to peer, it's like, oh, you're married and I'm not. And I'm like, I don't care. What are you doing with what you have?
Well,
you
I mean,
know?
I even catch myself and, like we've talked about this as the three of us, like, oh, I could set you up with someone, or ooh, like I know someone, like, or ooh, when are you gonna find that person or whatever, and like we put pressure on each other, and like in my mind, it's because like, oh, I want to see you happy.
As if you're deficient right now.
As if like not being in a romantic relationship like indicates some sort of deficiency. And obviously there's more nuance to it than that. Like some people want to be married and they're looking for somebody, or they wish that they were dating somebody or whatever. And it's like, oh yeah, I want you to be dating someone if you want to be dating someone. So let's find you someone or whatever. But like it's funny because we can look at it and be like, oh, that's dumb. But also like I just totally live that out.
Totally. Well, and I think, too, though, people are gravitating more and more towards singleness now. Like, people are like, no, I'm going to go after my career. Or James told me an interesting statistic about Japan recently. Like, more people, specifically women, are focusing on their career, and they're not getting married as young. They're, like, getting married in, like, their 30s. And there's great concern over the population of Japan in, like, whatever, 50 to 100 years is going to significantly drop because...
they have these, like, ghost towns that are, like, totally abandoned because all the population just died.
Yeah.
They just aged out.
It's crazy. And so... I don't know, but overall, I'm like, it feels like a healthier society. Like, we're not getting partnered up and, you know, pumping out kids because that's your, like, civic duty or something. It's like, you can pursue yourself and what you want and your goals.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned, like, this career thing, right? Like, I think I felt this pressure so much, especially with kids in mind. But I know people even with, like, getting married, there's sort of this idea that you can get married or you can pursue your career. You have to choose.
Yeah, that pisses me off.
Well, do you guys feel that? Have you noticed that? Do you feel like you can have both? Can you have it all? Do you have to choose? Is there a compromise in there? Like, what have you noticed?
I 100% have it all.
She's got it all, everybody.
Kellyanne, come to her for all the secrets of life how to succeed.
She
has it all.
I don't think there's a secret. I intentionally was like, hey, I want a partner in life. Yeah. I don't want someone that I need to take care of, and I don't want you to feel like you need to take care of me. I want someone that we're going to trust each other, support each other, laugh together, be best friends together. But, like, I made it very clear, like, I'm not going to be the wife that makes dinner for you every night. And, like, it actually really rubs me the wrong way when other people that I know, whom I also love a lot, but they're like, oh, what are you, like, making for dinner tonight? And I'm like...
People ask you that?
Oh, yeah. I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like... It's just like it really rubs me the wrong way. I'm like, well, we have tortillas and cheese, so
quesadilla night.
When you say like I have it all, like that does not come with, you know, the perfectly clean house, the fully stocked pantry. Like it's like, no, I am hauling ass. Like I am working a job, doing a podcast, having a marriage, you know, doing all the things, and you will always feel like you are insufficient in one area. But like having communication about that is so important. And yeah, it really irks me when people are like, when people insinuate that there's still the expectation that even though you both work 40 hours a week, you come home as the wife and you clean and you prep dinner and do all these things while your husband just like fucks around. And I'm like, no, like we will cook dinner together, or we will switch off certain nights, or like we have certain things that we make. I'm blanking on everything I make right now, but
you
sometimes
make curry and bolognese.
James makes curry.
Oh, I make bolognese and James makes curry. So it's like
street taco.
We automatically know like, hey, let's have this tonight. Okay, this person's going to cook then. Yeah. And so like I made it really clear. I actually am not interested in being your mom. I want to have a partnership. And he knew that coming in. So, and that, in my opinion, that's the only reason I feel like I can say I have it all, because I intentionally was like, this is what I want and what I'm looking for. So
Because you gave up like the potential dream of what it means to have it all, right? Like you're saying,
Yeah.
having it all is not the clean, perfect house.
it's
with all of
messy.
the, it's like having it all is like I'm pursuing the things that I really want. James is pursuing what he really wants, and we're partnering together on like feeding ourselves and getting out of
having
bed every
shelter
morning,
and loving each other.
Yeah.
We pull everything together. We pull our forces together, and it doesn't look perfect. And that at the end of the day is how we're both fulfilled. So
No, that's good. I think actually I sort of had an opposite like idea of what it meant to be a wife growing up because we were so poor that like being a stay-at-home mom never occurred to me as a possibility. Like I was raised to believe I would work myself through college, that I would have a job. To me like a stay-at-home mom was a non-option. It was something that was very foreign to me. It was something that like I don't know, bored wives do. Like I knew of like one person in my high school who had a stay-at-home mom.
really,
And I'm sure there was more than that. I just didn't know. Yeah. And like it was weird. Like I was like, that is bizarre that someone would just like not work. So anyways, it wasn't until I married Ross, or not married him, but was dating him and, whatever, that he had said like one of his goals in life was to be able to support the family. So that if I wanted to stay home, I could, but I didn't have to. But if I wanted to, I could. And like that was the first time I had ever even considered staying home as an option. I was like, I didn't even know that was even available. And like he wasn't pushing either way. He just was like, I just want that to be an option for you if you wanted to do that. And so definitely did not go that direction. And I don't think that is something that I would love or enjoy. I would get very bored at home. And I think I would go crazy not talking to other human beings.
absolutely would go crazy.
But like, yeah, I think I always thought like you have to do the job, be the housewife, and all of the things all at once. Like there's no stay at home and take care of the home. There's you work and take care of the home.
Yeah. Like do it all.
So
Which is like, wow. Yeah, I gave up the housewife portion. I was like, I'm not going to do that.
But I like a clean house, so I'm always cleaning. It's dumb.
No, that's
She
so
is
good.
always clean.
You are so good at that. Honestly, like my bathroom probably should have been like scrubbed 2 weeks ago, and it just hasn't.
Well, you just haven't seen my bathroom that never sees the light of day. So I only clean for the things that people see.
Oh yeah, totally.
To bring it back around, I feel like not growing up in the church and also growing up with a very feminist, largely single mom,
Right.
I did not receive messaging that I would need to be a stay-at-home mom. That was never something that crossed my mind. Like, I actually think, I don't want to throw my mom under the bus, but I feel like I remember her kind of talking bad about moms who stayed at home as if, like, that was a almost shameful thing for them to do. Because they're just so privileged, essentially, to be able to do that. And so I saw a mom who worked a lot. My mom has always been the higher income earner than her spouses. Like, my mom has, like, grinded my whole life. And so, to me, that was not really anything that was on my radar. Like, the idea that, like, you get married and then you become a stay-at-home mom, or, like, you can't have a job. I will say, I do think that maybe subliminally there was a bit of messaging that, like, you can't have both your professional career and marriage, therefore my divorce has happened.
Yeah.
So, like, because my mom has been divorced twice, so it's like, okay, like, her divorces were not rooted in, like, her being too career-oriented. They were for other reasons. But I didn't ever see, like, a professional mom who was also in a happy marriage. So those two things didn't necessarily line up to me. But again, marriage was not something I was thinking about in, like, a real way. For me, it was the idea that, like, you can be single and successful and independent. Like, that was the messaging that I always got over, like, you need to find a man to marry you and support you. And I think as well, I've always had this sort of perception of, well, I don't have time for a relationship, you know? Like, it's always, in my mind, it's been like, well, I'm pursuing my dreams. I'm working on getting my degree. I'm working my job. I'm on the mission field. I'm building my friendships. I'm trying to be an involved member of my community. How on earth would I have time to be in a relationship? Like, that's always seemed like something that people do when they don't have anything else to do. Almost. Like, it's like, and I mean, all that to say, I have like started dating in this past year again after a long time of not, and like, I've found, like, if you want to make time for that, then, like, it is definitely possible. I think there's seasons where people might legitimately not have time or capacity to date. But there is, like, if you really want it, there is the ability to, like, make room for that. So.
Well, I feel like both of you are kind of touching on that. It seems like it's really less about, like, choosing one or the other, and it's more about, like, what do you want in life? And, like, go after it and, like, be willing to let other things fall to the wayside because you've determined, like, you can't actually have it all, right? Like, there are, like, countless messages about who we need to be as humans, as women, and what that needs to look like. And, you know, you have to work out and you have to have a job and you have to clean the house, or not clean the house, but you have to have a clean house and you have to, you know, cook for your husband. I don't know. You have to have the powerful career and, like, have me time and get your nails done and, like, whatever. I don't know. There's a million things that, like,
yeah, you could just keep going.
Right. You could just go, you know, like, go hiking and be adventurous, but also stay at home and self-care, you know, like, whatever. And it's actually more about, like, what do you want? And are you going to go after it? Because, like, you can make time for the things that you're really passionate about, and you can, like, let go of the obligation to want or need or pursue other things that aren't actually as important to you.
Yeah, and that is the question. What are you willing to let go of?
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, James can be a stay-at-home dad. Like, I'm great with that. But also, if we both are making decent money, we can hire a nanny. Like, you know, it's like, do we actually want kids? We don't know. Maybe not. Like, you know, what are you willing to not have? Because that makes space for what you really do want. So it's so good.
That's one of the other things, too, that comes to mind is, like, this idea of kids. And I want kids. I don't know necessarily when or how. Well, I do know how. But
there's
You do?
yes.
I'm proud of you.
You know about the birds and the bees?
And the flowers and the trees. Yes, thank you. But anyways, we're not necessarily, like, sure on the logistics of that yet. But I know that I want them eventually. And it feels like my 20s have been a race against my career. Like, figuring out how can I rise to a certain level of prominence within my career so that if I left the field potentially for 3 years, I don't know, if I did, I'm not saying I would, but if I did, would I be able to, like, jump back in, you know, or would I be obsolete, or would I have not ever actually had that great of a resume in the first place and wouldn't be able to, like, I would have to rebuild everything essentially. And so that to me has felt, or has been a source of a lot of stress in, like, wanting a family, but also having big career ambitions and, like, things that I want to go after, and feeling like those two are not always compatible.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm way back in the day when me and James were first, like, dating, I was like, yeah, I want, like, 5 kids. Like, I was like, that, like, was what I wanted. But I think I wanted it because that's what I thought success looked like in life. But I was also very driven and business-minded, and I really wanted to pursue a career of some kind. So it was very conflicting. But then as I've settled, quote unquote, into life, into marriage, and into my career, I'm like, oh, this is actually really life-giving. And even though, yeah, I really like kids, like, you know, I really, really love kids. I actually don't know that I want my life to change right now. And so because of that, it's like, and James is in the same spot. It's like, we really love our life. We really love each other. And, like, we don't actually know that we want to bring in another player into that dynamic yet. Or if we ever do. And because that's the reality. Like, kids change everything. And that doesn't mean it's bad, but it also doesn't necessarily mean it's good. Like, I actually, this is very judgmental, but I kind of know several people that I'm like, why'd you have kids? Like, like you guys are not, you don't seem happy. Like, you always seem tired, which is a given. But, like, they just don't seem like happy people. Like, and then they keep having kids. But also, like, that's their choice and that's fine. But I'm also like, I don't know that that's going to be my choice.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. We might have, like, one, maybe two. But it's not right now.
Kids just definitely throw another dynamic into the whole conversation. I have another question, which is, what obstacles mentally or emotionally or physically have you found yourself like getting over or coming up against as you, one, try to find yourself and like try to be the person that you want to be, but also like for Emma receiving these messages, for a single person, Kelly as a married person, like in finding yourself in the midst of all of this like romantic relationship jumble, how do you find yourself?
For me, and sort of, first of all, in like breaking that mindset of my value being rooted in a romantic relationship that I had when I was a teenager / early 20 something, that has been just going cold turkey for me. You know, like I took a break for a long time of pursuing anything romantic, and that was because I didn't care to focus on that. Like, I wanted to build up my life. Like, I wanted to figure out what I want and shape the life that I want, rather than, like, be doting over a guy, basically, was the way that I thought about it. And I think that plus just, like, age and maturity has made, like, now going into dating a lot different, because I don't view a guy that I'm dating as my world. Like, I don't have that. It felt like anything that would go wrong in a relationship when I was younger was the end of the world, because I was orbiting him. And now I feel like we're like each our own independent planets, if we're going to carry on the metaphor. And so I feel very much like when I'm talking to a guy or dating a guy, it's like, okay, like, you do your thing, I have my thing, we'll come together whenever we need to, you know? And I think that like sort of learning to hold it a lot looser has been like essential. And on top of that, like, I also think about one of the mindsets actually that you, Kelly Ann, brought up earlier was the mindset that, like, oh, what was it? That there must be something wrong with me, and that's why, like, guys don't like me. But I feel like the mindset that I've been having to work through more instead is that, oh, I'm a catch, but there's no sufficient guys out there, which, like, is also, like, a lie. And, like, that's not giving credit to the male population. And so I think that that's one thing that I've had to sort through and sort of, like, battle with within myself as I, like, if I start feeling sort of tired with the idea of dating or things like that, or just feel sort of, like, fatalistic, like, this is never going to work, I might as well not try. That is something that I'm still working through, is that idea that, like, there can be somebody who is a good match for me, you know? Because there's a lot for them to have to, like, match up to, honestly, because I mean, I have great friends and I love spending time with my friends, and if I would rather spend time with my friends than with you, then why would I date you? You know? Or, like, I I love working on this podcast, and, like, I love traveling and doing all these things, and it's like, if you don't measure up to those things, then you're not worth it in my eyes. So I think that's one thing that I've been working through, and that's, like, an emotional, mental obstacle that
sure.
I'm still working through, and recognizing, like, that it's naive to think that it's naive to think that no one would like you, which is that other mindset. But then the flip side, it's naive to think that there's nobody that could be good enough for you, essentially.
Well, I think there's the thing of just like time, right? Like the reality of like just how much time you actually have in the day and like what you need as a person to thrive, because everyone's different. For myself, like my mental health is like top priority. If I'm not focusing on that, I'm not going to be able to show up for anyone, not even myself. And so I feel like that is my own, I don't know if it's an obstacle, but it's more something I just need to be aware of. But then there's also like the seasons of life conversation. It's like when you first get married, like you've committed to this person. This person is now your person. And there's a lot of investment and building that needs to go into that. But like it's a constant building. It never really stops. But also like as you grow, you like learn to refine that. And it's like, okay, actually, like we don't need to spend, hours on hours with each other now. I have space for something else. Like we now have figured out how to communicate really well. So actually we can arrive to a conclusion in a disagreement in 15 minutes instead of an hour. Like you learn each other. And so I think there's the idea of just balancing your time. But I think also, it's really important to have permission to explore. And that is something that James has really empowered me for. He's like, hey, you want to, look into getting your scuba certification? Go do it. Like if you want to do a podcast with your two gal pals that requires a lot of your time, like do it. Like he doesn't hold me back. And I think that's really important in any relationship, like actually empowering each other to go and have fun and explore. But like knowing at the end of the day, if you have a need that's not being met, you can vocalize that. And like James knows, like the second he like says like, hey, like I feel like I'm needing something right now and it's this. And I'm like, great, let's talk about that and figure that out, because I've committed to making space in my life for him no matter what. But like I have not ever felt restraint like from being with him. Like he's always been like, yeah, you should do that.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's definitely been more internal. Like Ross has always been like supportive of me and like has actually pushed me out of my comfort zone to like go after the things that I want. Because I think my perspective was probably more similar to Emma's in terms of like, I orbit you. Like we are one and we must do everything together and like we must be aligned on all things and whatever. And I think part of its maturity is like growing up in like, I was so young when I got married, and now I'm much older and have found myself and like have settled into myself much more. But another part of it was realizing like, oh, like if I want to do that thing, I can go do that thing. You don't have to be there.
Yeah.
Like neither of us is going to miss out on each other by like the other person doing something different, right?
Yeah.
Like it's part of actually what I get to admire about you at the end of the day is that like you're a different person and I can watch you do different things and watch you enjoy, 2-hour workout sessions like when I'm off podcasting with the gals, and like there's things we can look at each other and admire. And if you're doing everything together all the time, like there's like no degree of separation,
Totally.
And how do you inspire each other, like
yeah, totally.
He inspires me because we're not 100% like on top of each other all the time,
Yeah.
And so I think that has definitely been a big piece of it, and for sure feeling limited to what I could do in the church and as a successful person without his participation was a big thing that I had to get over, and eventually just had to go after it myself. So those are big ones for me.
I mean, and if you think about like when people date, generally they have their own things, like there's obviously toxic dating relationships where they're also just like orbiting one another and obsessed with one another, but you have your own things that you do, and there's not like an expectation to be united in everything that you do because you're just dating. But I feel like there's a shift when people get married where it's like, well, now you should do everything together, or like, where is your husband when you're like doing something? And it's like, why would you, if dating is like the, practice ground for marriage, why would you do something different once you're married? Like, there's obviously differences in a marriage, but why would you all of a sudden become one homogenous, like, being?
I think that is something, though, that the church perpetuates is, like, you are one. And it's, like, really weird, like, when you, like, show up at a party and people are like, oh, is James here? And I'm like, no. But sometimes he does come, and it's, like, really special. It's like, oh, like I would prefer to have you there with me, but I don't need you there with me. And there's a huge difference, I think, with that. But I do want to circle back because I definitely forgot something to mention earlier, is that sometimes I actually am like, oh, well, I can't fix this car thing because of whatever. Or, oh, I shouldn't fix this house thing. And I don't know if it's because of the way I was raised or if it's like, oh, I don't have time. But that's something I'm actually unpacking, like, currently in our relationship. I'm like, why do I default to James to fix, like, fill in the blank? I'm like, I'm perfectly able-bodied to fix this thing. And actually, I'm pretty good at solving problems. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah.
No, I can relate to that for sure. But mostly I just default to, well, he can fix it anyways. So
I'm like, I'm tired.
I'm like, I do other stuff. It's fine. Like, he can handle the fixing of things. But, you know, I think it's more about, like, communication and, like, having, like, sharing the work load or whatever together. And that can be divvied up in any number of ways.
Yeah, I think where it becomes problematic is if you were legitimately good at fixing certain things and it was like, well, he has to do it because he's the husband. Yeah. Like, that's an issue.
Yeah.
So.
But I'm always like, oh, James, will you do this for me? And he's like, but why? Like, I love you and I would, but like, you don't actually need me. And so in that way, he's very empowering and he pushes me to be, like, more independent. So that's why I always praise him for being a feminist. He's like, you don't need me, babe. I'm like, okay.
It's actually a very simple task. You can do it. I trust.
Yeah.
Trust me. All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. Again, thank you to the person who recommended this topic because I think it's, like, super valuable. And I think there's a lot of messaging around there about who we are as women and what it means to be single or what it means to be married. And actually, like, the truth is, like, you're a human, and regardless of your relationship status, like, there's a person inside that, you know, you can continue to cultivate and find and, I don't know better. But I wondered, do you guys have advice for, like, if you were giving advice to yourself, for example, or advice for the younger gal or another gal, like, what would be your words of wisdom regarding this topic?
I would say have grace for yourself, have grace for your partner if you have one. Like, it is an ebb and flow and a discovery of boundaries. And sometimes you overstep boundaries and then you pull back. And sometimes your house is going to be messy. And most of the time, sometimes your partner needs to do all the laundry all the time.
Most of the time, sometimes.
Most of the time, all the time. In my case, you know, like, life is messy and you're going to be fucking tired, kid. Like, you're going to be fine, though. You're going to make it through. And just, you know, decide what's important to you and stick to your guns. But also, it's okay for things that are important to you to change. But know that at the end of the day, you're the one responsible for your life. So if you're unhappy with the way it is, it's your responsibility to change it.
Yeah. That's a good word. I'd say, seek balance between, like, doing your own thing and being intentional in pursuing a relationship if that's what you want. I think that one of the biggest mistakes that I see single people make is that they wait to do their life until they find that person. And I would say build your life into what you want it to be, and you can find someone along the way. Like, go to on that trip to that country that you've been wanting to go to, or move to that city that you've never been to, or, like, take on that job that you've always wanted. Like, do those things instead of being like, well, I can't really let my life start until I find someone. Because you only get this life. Like, you have this life and YOLO, you know? You make the most of it. Live it to the fullest. Be happy. And if this is any encouragement, if anyone is out there, a single Pringle, and who like is wanting to be in a relationship, just think about like Kamala Harris, okay? Stay with me here. Kamala Harris didn't get married until she was in her 40s. She was not married at all until she was in her 40s, and now she's the vice freaking president of the United States. So if Kamala Harris is doing great, so can you.
Absolutely.
That's good. Yeah. You know, it's Kamala, you know, like whatever. Thanks for.
That was some good audio there.
Yeah.
Everyone could really hear your
chest bumped to Kamala. We love you as a woman who has been the first vice president of the United States. As
Kicking ass.
So way to go.
Whether you like her or not, homage, you know?
Yes, exactly. We stand in solidarity. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think my advice for, at least for Christian women who had similar backgrounds, is like your identity and purpose is not wrapped up in another person. So you have full agency, married or not, to like be who you are and go after what you want, and don't apologize for it, and don't like be embarrassed by it or whatever. Just like go after it. And I think if you have the right person in your life, like they will support you in that, and they'll actually be encouraged by that, and they'll be inspired by you, and you'll be inspired by them. And you guys like don't have to do everything together. Marriage is not a do everything together kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a partnership, and it's a beautiful union and whatever. And there are some things that have to be shared, but not everything. And so like, you know, you'll figure it out. But and then also I'd say like I really want to emphasize what Kelly said, is like sometimes there are points in your life where you feel like you have to choose, and sometimes you have to just decide what to let go of. Because not everything, first of all, will bring you life that you feel like you need. And, you know, choose the things that do, and like make those priorities. And if that results in a messy house, or, you know, like a lot of door dashing instead of cooking, like do it, because those are not your priorities in life. Go after your priorities in life, I think. So, yeah, that's all I got.
I think that's good. Nailed it.
Nailed it. Thank you. Well, thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Emma and Kellyanne, for sharing.
Anytime.
And yeah, like, again, we're really excited to actually be talking about some subjects that people are recommending and whatever. So yeah, keep like the feedback loop going. We'd love to hear from you guys. Love to hear what you enjoy, what you think, what you thought. And yeah, make sure to follow us, subscribe, review, all of those lovely things, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.